All right, friends. Nothing is fun until it goes wrong. Am I right? So I went live a couple of minutes ago, and then I got a notice from StreamYard that I was not live on LinkedIn, and that they recommended I shut down the live and start over. So here I am. Glad to be with you today. And I'm going to be talking about the power dynamic that we create with our bosses and coworkers, and the decisions that we make in our head about what the story is when we decide that people are scary and situations are scary. So there exists this power dynamic between employees and their bosses, employees and other coworkers who maybe seem to have more power than other people in a company. And I want to start by telling you a story about my first job out of college. I was working for a trade association in DC as an assistant, and learned that we had been invited to have lunch with the president of the company, of the trade association. And this organization was maybe 50 people, not very big. But the way that the setup was that the president was on another floor. He had an assistant who had an office in front of his. His office was behind bulletproof glass, and nobody was ever sure why. We were not a controversial organization. We dealt with plastics. So that was a little strange. But his assistant sat in front of him in an office, and then her assistant sat in front of her in an office. And so to get to the president was like, you had to be a member of some secret society. And so our department got invited to lunch with the president. And my coworker who was setting up the lunch said to me, "Hey, I'm just asking everybody what kind of food they eat. What do they like?" And I'm a picky eater. I always have been, still am. And I said, "I'll eat anything but Indian food." And for me, the spices and the curries just are not up my alley, even to this day. And so she made a reservation at an Italian restaurant, and I extra dressed up that day. I wanted to impress the president, the president who was behind the assistant, who was behind the assistant. And we came in that morning, and my coworker said, "Oh, the Italian restaurant we were supposed to go to had a flood, so they're closed. So now we're going to go to an Indian restaurant." And my brain started going like, "Oh no, what am I going to do? I don't eat Indian food. And now we're going to be with the president. I don't want to be weird in front of the president of the company." And so we get to lunch, and we're sitting in a very nice Indian restaurant, cloth napkins, cloth tablecloths. People are dressed up. The men are wearing jackets, and the waiter comes over, and we've barely introduced ourselves. I haven't said a word. I'm very nervous about being with this, higher up person in the company. And I told the waiter, pretty quietly that I didn't really eat Indian food, and could he recommend something that was just pretty plain? So he recommended a chicken dish, and that's what I ordered. And I'm nervously, trying to make conversation in this group of 6 or 8 people where I'm the most entry-level person. And the president is there, and very nice guy, but I've created in my head that he's this like very big deal, and I should be smart and know things as I'm talking to him. And so the food comes. The first bite I take of my chicken has a small bone in it. And I didn't know business etiquette. I didn't know what I was supposed to do and what I wasn't supposed to do. And I had a cloth napkin in my lap, and I didn't want to spit a piece of bone into a cloth napkin. I didn't even know if I was allowed to go to the bathroom, because I'd created in my head this big power dynamic. And so I put the piece of bone in the corner of my gums and played with my food a little bit, and, ate a little bit as we went along. And I carried that piece of bone with me all the way back into the office, and went to the bathroom when we got back to the office and got rid of it. And that has always stuck with me as such a marked um, fear moment for me, where I really just made a decision that he was higher up, he was more powerful. I was this little peon nothing, and I shouldn't make a stir. I shouldn't get up and go to the bathroom and that sort of thing. And all these years later, I think about that, because what really strikes me about that is that now that I know how things work, and I've worked with presidents and CEOs and reported to them and coached them, I know that that wasn't his intention. He was not there to have me be afraid of him. He was doing a nice thing, taking us all out to lunch. And regardless of the fact that he had an assistant who had an assistant, he really was a very nice man. And what I learned from that, and what I've taken forward with me, is that it doesn't matter what level we're at. We're all the same. And we all just want to have like a nice workplace. And I'm not saying there aren't jerks out there. There are a lot of jerks out there. But a lot of the time when we're afraid to have a conversation with our boss, or when we're afraid to have a conversation with a coworker, it's because we've created a story in our head about what we're allowed to be thinking and what we're allowed to be saying. And we have no idea what the other person might be thinking, or might be wondering, or might be willing to agree to. And so a lot of times when I'm talking to my clients, they will tell me why they can't talk to their boss about something, and what they know the outcome is going to be if they do talk to their boss. And it's this story that we create in our heads, that we should be afraid of management, that they have a lot more control over us than we have over them, and that we have a place, and our place is here and their place is here, and we just need to, stay in our place. And what I've worked with a lot of people on is different ways to have those conversations, and to ask for what we need, and ask for what we want, and offer solutions. And so when you're thinking about this power dynamic, right, and you think about, I want to ask my boss for more flexible hours, or I want to ask my boss for an extra project, or I want to set a boundary and say, I can't take on this project right now. Our brains automatically go to the worst case scenario. We're going to look lazy. We're going to look like we don't really care. We're going to look like we're stupid. And we come up within our heads, this story that we're going to be rejected for whatever it is that we're looking for. But the truth is that the power dynamic doesn't exist with person to person. It exists with the situation that we create, or that's created for us. And so we have this whole story about how bosses are scary. And so when we're in a boss subordinate situation, we want to defer, we want to sit back, we want to not stand up for ourselves. But if you think about how the power dynamic shifts, right? And so you're the employee, and you think of your boss as the sort of the higher level person. Imagine a scenario where you're driving home at night, and you see your boss's car on the side of the road. And you pull over, and your boss says, "Oh, thank goodness you're here. My car broke down. I don't know what to do. I don't have a phone. My tire's flat." And all of a sudden now the power dynamic has shifted, and now you're in the power seat. And so I say that just to really demonstrate that the power dynamic is the situation that is created around us, and what we make that mean. Because you could say to your boss, like, "Hey, sorry you're broken down. I got to go. I don't have room for you in my car. Good luck." And then your boss is left on the side of the road. And so when I think about this, and I talk to clients about this, we talk about the reasonability factor of requests that they're making. We talk about how they might ask for what they need, or how they might say what they need, right? So there's sort of a difference between asking permission, which is the correct thing to do in some cases, and also stating a need, or setting a boundary, or setting a limit. And an example that I always give that sort of, takes that power dynamic out a little bit is that if you can think of a time, and I've never talked to anybody who can't think of a time. If you can think of a time where you've been sitting at a conference room table or a family table or a friend table, been with a group of people and your stomach gets upset. And I won't get gross and graphic here, but you're in a situation where your stomach gets upset and you are not sure how you're going to manage being in this seat with this upset stomach and not pooping your pants before you get to the bathroom, right? So everybody can think of a scenario where they've either felt nauseous or faint or had an upset stomach. And everybody's in the same power dynamic in that situation, right? So everybody has that fear. Everybody has the what will the people around me think when that happens to me. And the opportunity there is to realize that we are all the same. We are all the same. We all have different jobs. We all have different levels of responsibility and authority. But at the end of the day, we're all humans. And we all have this opportunity to really come together and set priorities together, set boundaries together, have our needs met together, and really look out for ourselves. And what I have learned over the years with my bosses and my coworkers is that the things that go unsaid have me creating stories in my head about what they mean. When I talk about something, almost always the response has been positive. Thanks for bringing that to me. I didn't know that. Congratulations on making that decision. Way to go setting limits. Way to go setting boundaries. And when it hasn't been, I still know that I have an answer and I still feel justified that I have said what I needed and I've gotten my response. So if you feel like you're in a situation where you are dealing with this power dynamic and you are nervous to have these conversations with your boss, that's something that I work with clients on. So if you want to set up a time to chat with me, I offer a free strategy call. And we can talk about what that means to you and how that's affecting your work relationships and how that's affecting you in the workplace. And I'd love to have a chat. I will put a link to my Relaunch Your Career Strategy call in the comments. And feel free to DM me or comment on this live stream. And I'll be live every day this week talking about different topics and hope to see you live on another day. Thanks so much. Take care.